Hi, this is Uncle Bob. I'm telling you another story about when I was a little boy. In this case, me and my friends, when we wanted excitement, we'd get together and, start walking the neighborhood to see what was happening. And if there was a pile of snow, as there frequently was, we'd play in it or throw snowballs, whatever. And the little town where I grew up got a lot of rainfall, which meant snow in winter, but the trouble was it was always around freezing, so it'd be snow and then rain and rain and then snow. So the snow was almost always wet. So, although the temperatures weren't that low, when you got your clothes wet and you were outside, you wanted to warm up, Well, I guess we could have gone into one of our homes and, kind of dried off or whatever. We didn't even consider that. That meant going back under parental supervision. But we found a spot where we could dry off at least a little bit. If we walked down the hill towards French Creek, down by the railroad tracks, there was a creamery. In those days, you didn't get your milk from California or Wisconsin. You got your milk from the farmers in your area. Or if you're in the big city, you got your milk from the farmers who were around the big city. But in our case, Crawford County had lots of dairy farms. And they would ship their milk in by rail or by truck in big milk cans. You may have seen those big, heavy milk cans. A few people still keep them as ornaments. I don't know how many gallons they held, but they were pretty darn heavy when they were filled with milk. And those would arrive at the milk processing plant. Well, they had to dump out the milk and clean the cans. And they cleaned the cans with steam. Now here was the creamery definitely in our neighborhood, and the cans would be steamed to sterilize them, and then they'd come out on a little track like that ran around in front of the creamery, and on the little rollers, and of course the steam would escape. I think there was like a burlap flap to try and keep the steam from escaping, but the steam would escape outside. And, of course, where there's steam, there's warmth. So, as we hung around there and we watched the cans come out, we could dry off a little. Of course, the creamery wasn't always working. It wasn't always sterilizing cans. So if we kept up empty there, then we had to climb back up the hill to where we lived, and a little above where there was a college, and the college had a huge central heating plant, as did most large institutions at that time. And it burned coal, and it turned water into steam, and the steam was piped to the various rooms, classrooms, buildings in the college. And, of course, there was a big fire and the boiler. And heavy doors, and you could sneak in if the gentleman who ran the place would come and say, "Hey, boy, what the heck do you think you're doing in here?" Why, we'd explain that we were playing in the snow, we got wet, we need to dry out. He'd say, "Okay, don't get any closer than that. You can stand there for a while and dry out." And so that was our second alternative. Sometimes he wasn't there, and that didn't work either. But there was one big boom at the college steam plant that we would sit on the banks and wait for. And it was this. Naturally, you burn coal, you've got ashes. So the ash would be shaken out in the grate, and they had to be hauled somewhere. So there was like a little railroad car, just tracks and a hand-push car that would come out of the big brick building along a little railroad track, and there the operator, the gentleman who ran the steam plant, would tip it, and the ashes would fall in a ash pile that was eventually picked up by a truck. But they'd be kind of hot and glowing, and we would wait around in the evening about 5:30 or so. He would time it his shift. We knew the time. He'd come out, tip the cart, and all the ashes and the flames. It was quite a show, and we loved to watch it. Well, those were a couple of ways to dry off from the wet snow. Years ago, when your Uncle Bob was a little boy. Bye-bye.